In this video, we are talking all about a third park at the Disneyland Resort. Friend of the channel, hey Brickey, did a phenomenal video about this about a week ago. Really, really good stuff. We're going to kind of play his video, break it down along the way. It's fantastic content. Third park, Disneyland Resort. Let's freaking go. Welcome aboard to another episode of OG 55 with the two Italianos. We got OG and we got Mr. Disney George, Citrus George in the house. George, thank you so much for joining me, brother, to talk about Third Park and Hey Brickey's video.
Thanks for having me on. Yes, I love joining you on these Disney adventures and spilling some tea, drinking some tea, throwing all that tea out. You know, we're just a couple of Italianos that just love the tea.
Exactly. Oh, we love the tea, man. We love the tea. Go ahead. You can let everybody know where they can find you on social media, sir.
Absolutely. You can find me on X at Disney George. You can check out the podcast, A Walk with Walt. And, of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info.
There we go. There we go. I'm going to clock you in right now. Let's do it.
May I have your attention, please?
There we go. Oh, yeah, I don't know if that's a good one. Let's do a different one. Hold on. That's the wrong Star Tours. Here we go. Let's do this one. There, that's better.
There we go.
Okay, so let's go ahead and break down this Brickey video. This is actually really cool. So, friend of the channel, Brickey, he does great content. I've been watching him for years. He's an awesome dude. He gets he kind of breaks this down. He does like a long form video. It's about a half an hour. We're probably going to do a part 2 on this just because with his video being a half an hour and then inserting our commentary, I don't want it to go for too long. So I might break it up into like a part 1 and a part 2. But he kind of goes over, like, he kind of makes the case and analyzes why he thinks the Toy Story lot will eventually become a third park, right? Fascinating stuff. He makes some of the arguments that we made here in OG 55 for years and some new arguments. So it's a really good video. Let's go ahead, George. I'm going to press play and we'll get started.
Sounds good.
Friends, what if I were to tell you that right now I'm standing in the most exciting part of Disney's future in Southern California? I don't care what anyone tries to tell me when they look at the concept art for Disneyland Forward. I'm here to tell you right now, there is no way that this will be a shopping plaza. I'm here to say that I am proudly standing in the third and final gate inside of Southern California.
Okay.
He already has me sold.
He already has me sold as well. And Brickey, amen, brother. I've been saying the same freaking thing. There is no way. There is 75 acres of land there. 75 acres. Now, without the Grand Californian, DCA is 75 acres as well, give or take. I think it's like 74, 75, okay? There is no way Disney is going to squander 75 acres in Anaheim, which land is hard to come by out there in Anaheim, on retail. When you can take 15 or 20 acres somewhere else, you can buy a couple of hotels over there on Harbor or something and build a downtown Disney or Disney Springs-ish kind of thing. You do not need 75 acres for retail. This will be a third park eventually. Absolutely. I agree with him. What do you think, George?
I absolutely do too. And it's Disney right now is so hell-bent on trying to get Disneyland Forward up and running, trying to get the locals, trying to get the businesses, trying to get people just to recognize of what their long-term goals are. And if Disney is going to do that and they have 75 acres worth of land that could be utilized but can't initially be utilized right now due to the zoning issues, once that gets lifted from Disneyland Forward, I cannot foresee, as you had mentioned, OG, 75 acres to be utilized for shopping and dining They already got that with Downtown Disney. If they wanted to move another like location, they can do that. But this is for park number 3 for Disneyland for sure.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely, absolutely. If they want another downtown Disney or something like that, they can put their chips in for Garden Walk, which is like failing miserably. I mean, I'm sure there's a price tag on that thing. If they wanted to buy it, I'm sure they could.
Which I'm surprised they didn't already attempt to try to get that right now. I'm really surprised at that.
Yeah, me too. Me too. Let's continue.
There is no way you can convince me that at some point where I'm at right now, the Toy Story parking lot won't become Disney's last move on the chessboard and putting a third gate here in Anaheim, making the Disneyland Resort finally a week-long vacation. We've been working on this series for a while. We started out at the edge of Disney's California Adventure, showing the plans to take over part of the Esplanade. We then went across the street and showed you where the new parking garage would go. That parking garage has to happen if this land gets converted into anything. And then to take it a step further, how Garden Walk can become the West Coast version of Disney Springs, bringing people through a shopping district from the parking area and then finally dumping them here at the third gate, the final gate. Friends, we've been on this voyage for a while. Me making videos that nobody cares about. Who wants to film a parking lot? This guy.
Hey, Brickey, these guys care about it too. You know, this stuff is what we live for. We love these kind of breakdown videos. And thank you so much, brother, for doing this, because I don't know, I have a lot of fun with this. But what do you think, George? Are you like me? You kind of nerd out with this stuff?
Oh, absolutely. I actually, at the time when you asked me if you would like to do a video, like this was like a week ago, I was in the midst of watching this, and I thought, oh wow, that's like not a coincidence, because yeah, I geek out at this stuff. It's like I'm so intrigued about not what's happening, but what could happen with the potential. And the more that we discuss it in the community, Disney listens. They have sharp ears. So whether or not it goes somewhere with it, but they at least know that we want to see something happen. So the fact of how Brickey is all out there and he is just passionate about this kind of stuff, and he doesn't care who watches, who listens in, I commend him for it.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Dare I say Brickey is going balls to the wall, George?
He's going balls to the wall.
Today, we bring our East Disney jaunt, not to a complete conclusion, but an end of this chapter in our monthly Disneyland Forward series, where we're looking how Disneyland could grow. Today, we're focusing on the Toy Story parking lot. Not a lot of visuals, not a lot to see. I'll be honest. We're going to walk it out. We're going to look at the property. We're going to talk about the scale and the size. And I'm going to convince you there is no way possible this becomes a shopping plaza. Brother, I'm standing in a theme park in the future. So friends, Brickey here. Welcome to Disney's third park. Let's get started. So over in the bullseye section of the parking lot, we just have a lot of raw space. Now there is something to kind of debate. There are lots of hotels that have purchased into this block of land that we're on. These hotels have largely, and these other businesses have cut out the corners of this parcel of land. With these hotels being here, it does limit the amount of space in the parking lot. But you have to wonder, is there a price that some of these hoteliers or leasees or landlords would be willing to sell out to if Disney wanted to acquire their land for a third gate? Okay,
now here's what I want to propose. This is an interesting idea here, because I guess these corners of the Toy Story lot were kind of like chunked out, and they built these hotels on the corners of the land, right? Mm-hmm. And he's saying, okay, let's see. Maybe these hotel owners or landlords, there's a price that Disney could pay them to give up that property so they can fully push out the entire third theme park. Here's what I'm thinking. Disney has owned this Toy Story lot for a very long time. I mean, I think since like the mid 90s, if I'm not mistaken, or around there, maybe. What if they own that land already that those hotels are sitting on? That's actually a strong likelihood that is the case. I don't know that for sure, so I'm not trying to make any like definitive statements here, but maybe Disney decided, okay, there's no third park in the near term. We can kind of parcel out some of this and make money as a landlord in the meantime. So what do you think about that, George? Do you think that Disney owns those little chunks, or do you think that maybe they are a different owner that Disney would have to buy out?
That's a good question. Especially since of how Brickey mentioned, like that the four corners are kind of like cut out. So essentially, in order for these hotels to fit in, I never really thought of that. If actually the landlords actually are Disney, and the hotel is paying Disney to be on their land, so to speak. If that's the case, then Disney has the upper hand. Right. They can end that contract at any time after a certain point of time, or if they had already sold that land prior to these hotel companies. And Brickey questions the fact if it has a price. Everything has a price. Yeah. I think if Disney were to go to them, if they don't own the land anymore, and they say, we want to offer you this amount of money, would you take it? I think if it's the right number, I think those hotels would take it.
Yeah, no, there's always a price tag on that stuff. These corporations, there's always a price tag. Now, is Disney willing to shell out any amount? I'm sure Disney has a ceiling too, and there's factors involved and all that stuff. But absolutely, I mean, I think
Disney will do it if Disney knows that they have a good enough project and overall theme of what the third gate can hold. Right. If they know that they have a good enough project that it is worth spending the money to make that revenue back, they'll do it. But I think they'll be kind of cautious of how they do it, as long as they have the proper overall theme of what the third gate is going to entail.
Absolutely.
Which then would also bring to the question, would the city of Anaheim want to be working with Disney to make sure they had all the land that they needed to create a third gate? My answer on that one is yes. Post-pandemic, Disney fully displayed their commercial value and power to the city of Anaheim. So I feel like Anaheim would do what they could to make more Disney happen here. So as we walk around, let's kind of keep in mind that some of these businesses that are on the different corners might be able to be purchased and annexed into this park, while obviously others might be resistant to sell. But could the city of Anaheim broker a deal to make sure that Disney has what they do to bring in an economic stronghold for this community for a long time? Because as we're going to explore today, 3 Disney parks makes it very easy for a family out of town to justify a week's vacation here at the Disney Resort.
Yes. And here is the thing. I see a lot of talk amongst fan circles, right? Why did they build DCA? Why didn't they just expand Disneyland into the old parking lot? It's exactly what Brickey is saying. Psychologically, the more parks, families think, oh, wow, there's 3 parks, we can't do all of that in just 2 days. We got to stay at a hotel. Same thing with DCA. If you just made one ginormous Disneyland, psychologically, even though it's the same amount of space technically as adding 2 parks, psychologically, 2 parks seem like more. So when you have 2 parks, it's like, oh God, we can't do 2 parks in one day. We got to get a hotel, right? So that's part of the psychology here. So when he says, yeah, the third park is going to boost that, those hotel stays, he's absolutely correct on that. So it's very, very interesting.
And that's why, that's why Disney is taking a different approach with handling Disneyland Forward with the city of Anaheim. Now they're trying to get the public involved. They're trying to get these businesses involved. So in a way, they're kind of, I don't want to use the word schmooze, but I mean, they want to try to get them on their side of the playing field. So if push comes to shove to say, hey, we need this land, we need this, we need that, they would be willing to comply. speaking as far as to having like multiple parks for a family vacation, I think honestly, if they were to build the third gate, expand out DCA, they're golden. They have it made. Disneyland is already a set park.
Yeah.
If they wanted to expand it out later on down the road, they could. But Disneyland is perfect the way it is. DCA needs the love. The third gate needs to happen. Once that occurs, they're golden, because if they're so worried about a merchandise and shopping district, you still can have that with Downtown Disney for the time being. That's not a main priority right now.
Right, and as Brickey mentioned, you could buy Garden Walk, and you can make that a Disney shopping district. You know,
Exactly.
The shopping districts are easier to come by because you can do Garden Walk. You can maybe buy a hotel or two on Harbor and do a Disney Springs. You don't need 75 acres. I mean, that's ridiculous. And in Anaheim, when land is hard to come by, you don't waste all of that on retail. It just makes no sense.
Not to mention, with the third gate and expanding on DCA, you're going to add even more shopping and dining in those parks anyway.
That's true.
So
and that's a great point. And in regards to this piece of land and what the theme should be, I've been an advocate for a long time. I think it should be Westcott. I know that Disney has had issues with Epcot, and they're trying to kind of reimagine it with the franchises and the IP and infuse all that, and that's fine. But one of the biggest things for Epcot is the World Showcase, and if you make a Westcott that's kind of centered around that World Showcase formula, the drinking around the world stuff with the key holders would be money for Disney. I'm talking money. Hold on one sec. You know what? When we have money, you know what that means?
When we have money.
Lord.
Everyone silent. Listen to my money talk.
There we go. Money talks, and I'm telling you, that would be a big one for them. But we'll see if they even do it. I don't know. I think that it's unlikely, but I think that would be great for this piece of land. But let's continue.
The city of Anaheim makes a lot of money off of hotel guests because of all the taxes that are added to everything. There's no tax on the ticket to get into the parks. That's been negotiated out. Disney has it to where there's no taxes paid on our tickets, which gives them the ability to make the ticket the price that they need to get. We pay all the money to Disney. City of Anaheim gets nothing for it. But the hotels, that's where everybody makes money, because you got to keep in mind, the hotel guest is the most lucrative, most important guest, because they're spending the entire time they're here. This little stretch on the opposite side of where the EV parking is at is one of the only shaded areas in the entire parking lot. Wouldn't it be cool if these trees somehow survive and eventually we're inside of the theme park and we could be like, oh, I remember when those were the Toy Story parking lot trees. I always love when something predates the area that it's in. This is the most amount of vibes that you're going to find at the Toy Story parking lot. It's a pretty hideous spot at the resort. So after making a pit stop at the restroom, because there is a restroom here, we're walking along the backside of the Bullseye parking lot. And as you can see, they're not even really filling it up today. Just one worker walking by. But this is a massive, massive plot of land that if you go back into the series and check the playlist that I have going for it, you can see the parking alternative to Toy Story. For this to get converted over into anything, whether I'm right that it becomes a theme park or I'm wrong that it becomes a West Coast shopping district, for any of that to happen, you have to see the second video in this series where we talk about the conversion of the parking lot on the eastern side of the Disneyland Resort. Oh, I guess it's also now time for the disclaimer. Before we get to our disclaimer, that is the JW Marriott that's at the backside of the Garden Walk. That's there for good. But don't you find it interesting how it was built at a height that I believe was designed to overlook things to come? And the hotel that we see over here, that one I believe actually is on the other side of the road. So we have a couple of big hotels out on the outer perimeter, but we'll walk around and look at some of the things that are actually on this block of land. But first, I got to give you the disclaimer for this series. So actually on this property, we see the hotel, I believe it's Hotel Lulu right there. That sits on this property or adjacent to this property. And there is the Hyatt House over there. That is on this piece of land too. So, some of these are big corporations, some of these are a little bit smaller. I mentioned the scale of the business because that kind of gives you an indication of, negotiation of no way am I going to get rid of a Hyatt that's going to be right next to a Disney park, or somebody's like, yeah, buy me out. Let's do this. So far off in the distance over here is the security zone. This will be as much as we film in this direction. I don't want to get into any trouble. I don't ever want to film any security checkpoints. So you just get an idea that I'm standing at maybe the halfway mark. So this goes on. No, I'm standing at like the 1/4 mark. There's 3 more quarters of this property that goes off in this direction.
Now, Disneyland Resort has done a really, really good job at space management, especially compared to Walt Disney World. And this is a good size of property. It's a good chunk of land. You can see it. It's pretty massive. And it's actually, like I said, about the same size as DCA. If you build a park with a really great design and really utilize every nook and cranny to the best of the ability, their ability, and create a really efficient space, you could pack a lot in this property. You could really pack a lot. The thing with DCA, the problem with DCA is that it was built at a time, the tail end of the Michael Eisner era. He kind of cheaped out. The layout was kind of funky for that park. But 75 acres, if you build it right and you build it with a better layout, I think you can fit a lot more than what you have at DCA. What do you think, George?
I think so too. I think if they get creative, and it's just like how they did with Galaxy's Edge.
Right.
A lot of people, all the naysayers saying, oh, you can't put Galaxy's Edge behind the rivers of America. How dare you? How can you do that? How is that going to even look?
It's impossible. It's impossible, you guys. They need that space back there.
And it's like, they did it. It worked. It's like it was built in the park unscathed, like it was always there since 1955. So Disney is able and capable of getting creative with this kind of stuff. Now, I have a question for you. Sure. Take the hotels that are at each corner. Is it 75 acres, not counting those hotels?
Yes, I believe so. It's 75 acres, not including the.
Okay, so if they were able to clear out those hotels,
they'd get a little bit more.
They get a little bit more.
Yeah.
But I think it was funny when Brickey mentioned how those hotels were built in a degree of an angle to look down beyond.
Right.
So I wonder if Disney were to utilize that in a sense, where if they bought the hotels out and rethemed them to multiple Disney resort hotels, sort of kind of like how Epic Universe is doing down in Orlando, because they're going to have a hotel within the park, and then there's going to be 2 hotels outside of that. Those can be Disney hotels that could just be adjacent to the 3rd park.
Right.
So that way they won't have to clear anything out. It might be a little bit of a price tag, but then it would open up hotel occupancy for the Disneyland Resort, because Brickey even said it. It's the hotels that are driving force to get the tax paying in the city of Anaheim. So if they add in another theme park, and that's Disney's goal, to bring all these people in here to stay a week at a time, well, you're going to have more rooms.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Absolutely. Let's continue.
All right, let's talk about the scale of this place. And here is one of the front lots. This sits on the back side of Harbor. Basically, it exits right over to the convention center if you go through that little exit right over there. So this little cutout along Harbor gives you an idea that this space looks like nothing, but when you contrast this space to the hotels that are cut out around it, that's when you start to get a real idea of just how big this space actually is. Okay, disclaimer time. The disclaimer for this video series is this. If you don't have an imagination, goodbye. If you get caught up in, well, actually, Brickey, goodbye. Don't have time for you. This series is for people that want to explore the future, open up their mind to possibilities of what could be. Not what is, but what could be. And
Okay, this is great. And I'm really glad he said this because this is actually what we were just talking about. For years, whenever you bring stuff up, I've had this happen to me constantly amongst the community. Like what you said with the Galaxy's Edge, 14 acres, you can't do anything behind the rivers of America because there's backstage areas that Disney needs, right? That whole nonsense, that whole, well, actually kind of mentality that fans have, it's impossible. It's impossible. I'm telling you, this is really refreshing to hear from Brickey that, you know what, let's get off of that. Let's just have fun and let's think of the possibilities. And really, we've seen it too with Disney. When they want to do something, whether it be Galaxy's Edge, whether it be Runaway Railway, they will find a way to do it. Fans need to get. It's so weird to me how in a fandom where people are fans of something so imaginative lack so much imagination. Like, how can you be a fan of Walt Disney and you lack so much imagination? It just boggles my mind. Absolutely boggles my mind. Now there are logistics to this stuff. Obviously, is Disney willing to spend what it takes to do it and all that stuff? I get it. But I think that he makes a great point. You got to use a little bit of imagination, and we also have to accept the fact that these places are not set in stone necessarily. They are malleable. They can get bulldozed and changed, and things can be rearranged. But go ahead, George.
Yeah, I'm so glad that Brickey is one that doesn't hold back of what his interpretation of all this is. He is just flat out outright. It's like, if you don't want to hear what I have to say, then fine. Don't watch. Don't listen. Go to something else. But this is what I'm going to talk about. And I commend him for it. And I'm glad that he's doing this because not a lot of people are talking about this. They're already talking about, what's already there or what's getting replaced. Well, let's talk about like what could happen 10, 15, 20, 30 years down the road. That's what Walt always did.
Right.
Marty Sklar had always quoted that Walt had 1 foot in the past and 1 foot in the future. And that is the determination. That is the mindset that the company has to continue on with. It's looking into the future of what these possibilities could bring them.
Yeah, 100%, brother, 100%.
I want to address something that a lot of you brought up in the last video series. But real quick, I want to say everything that I'm doing in these videos is based on the history of Anaheim, Disney, and the way that the parks have grown. Fan theory, a little bit, but stitched together with a lot of realistic things that could potentially happen here in Anaheim. So if the disclaimer is if you have a limited imagination and you're not willing to sort of look into the crystal ball and predict what could be, this series just simply isn't for you. And then the thing that I want to address, a lot of people brought up, well, isn't Disney broke? Actually, I thought that they were broke. Isn't Disney running out of money? Yo, none of this is going to happen tomorrow. None of this is going to happen next year. None of this is probably going to happen in the next 5 years.
Right.
We are looking at a long-term forecast of how Disneyland in Anaheim could grow. Are they a little bit broke right now? Yes. Have they been broke before? Yes. Did they rebound? Always. So the whole aren't they broke now argument is basically like saying, hey, you were once a young person. When you got out of high school, did you want to buy a house? Yeah, of course you did. But you were broke. Oh, I thought you were broke. I thought you didn't have any money. But what did you do? You put in your time, you put away money, and hopefully you and your family were able to buy a house. At least some of you. I know that's becoming more and more impossible. But we're not looking at something that's going to happen tomorrow. Thus, go back to the disclaimer, you need an imagination to watch this video series. So if you're a but actually fan, goodbye, because this series is for people that want to think about long-term what could be, what could happen. Let's get going. All right, let's break down this property by the numbers as I'm standing underneath the shade tree right off of Harbor. DCA is roughly 3.7 million square feet. That includes backstage and onstage. This parking lot is 3.3 million square feet. Now,
see how close it is?
That's
And
pretty close.
it's pretty close. And people always tell me, man, I'm telling you, whenever I've done videos on this topic, the third park for a long, long time, back like in 2016, 2017, I was talking about this stuff. I'd always get the fans that Brickey's talking about, the well, actually crowd, right? Well, actually, OG, there's not enough room at the Toy Story lot. There's plenty of room. It's almost identical to the space of DCA, almost.
And honestly, he said it's 3.7, including backstage. So if it's 3.3, if Disney wanted to really kind of get it almost to the T of DCA, just cut back a little bit of the backstage area.
Right, exactly, which they can do because they've been cutting back on the backstage area at Disneyland for years.
If Disney were able to buy all of the different businesses that are also on this same block, that footprint would soar up to 3.9 million square feet, making this actually bigger than DCA. And if you add in Garden Walk, the entire area becomes about 5 million square feet. For a frame of reference, and it gets a little tricky with Disneyland because it also has offices on the exact same parcel of land, but Disneyland is 4.5 million square feet. So I know that's a lot of math. Many of you don't like math, but I wanted to give you an idea that with all these existing businesses, a little bit smaller than DCA, if they can get a couple of these businesses the exact same size as DCA, and if they could get them all bigger than DCA. So just a little something to keep in mind as we're doing a bit of a perimeter walk. And I'm well aware I have
sorry,
lost
just really quick.
my mind.
Yeah, I got you.
If worse comes to worse, it's just a little bit smaller than DCA. That's
Right.
the worst of the worst.
Right, that's the worst case scenario. It's a little bit smaller than DCA. And like I said before, DCA was not, as much as I love DCA, I advocate for DCA, but that era of Disney botched a lot of stuff. And I think the DCA design was botched in a lot of ways. So I think that kind of put a damper on how big the park feels. I think if they designed it differently, I think it would have felt bigger. I think they could have done a lot of structural kind of tricks and what have you. Like even Pixar Pier in 2001 when it was Paradise Pier, it was kind of like they didn't really think things out. They put like the coaster, which you can see through, as the berm, which defeats the entire purpose of a berm. So you can see through the whole coaster to the Anaheim Convention Center and what have you. So there were a lot of design flaws in DCA. If they go into this third park, though, on top of their game and really utilize the space more efficiently, I think it'll feel like a pretty sizable park.
But why don't you reward me for losing my mind for joining up to the channel? Everybody loves a good car wreck. Everybody loves to see somebody go crazy. Why not watch me lose my mind? See how empty it is out here? That's how empty it is when you don't hit subscribe. Subscribe today to Hey Brickey. Nobody's doing this stuff for a reason. Sign up, watch me lose my mind. Let's go crazy together. Because you have to be nuts to watch this type of content.
Yeah, Hey Brickey, and I will be linking, believe me, I will be linking his channel in the description down below. Definitely subscribe to him. Check out his work. He does great work. He's a friend of the channel. We would love to have him on.
Yes.
We've talked about it. We're working on it.
Brickey, come on the channel. All three of us will lose our minds together.
Yeah, exactly. But brother Brickey, we are the same as you, man. This stuff is like our meat and potatoes. This stuff is fucking awesome. Let's go.
So be my kind of psycho. Subscribe to Hey Brickey today. Gracias. All right, so we're going to start our walking journey heading south, where as you can see, it's just a lot of the Disney go away landscaping, where it's multiple rows of bushes and plants with a fence on the other side, as well as trees to keep good sight lines. And it's just the way they do the Disney barricade. So just a few feet down, we have already caught the end of the 3.3 million square feet, and we've hit our first business on the parcel of land, which is the Homewood Suites, which you can see is a Hilton property. I'm going to rank this one as sort of a medium size as far as the different things that exist on this block. It's a Best Western Plus, which looks to be a motel style establishment. Old school, sizable amount of land, a little bit more on the smaller side compared to the first one. And then this Ramada is the third and final hotel in this stretch. Something to keep in mind. Probably not going to be able to convert all of these over into selling their property, but for there's enough money, you'd be surprised what could happen. But I believe that the ones that are closest to the theme park are going to be the ones that are most attractive. So if you could get the first one to buy, then maybe the second and third, you could have a growth suite. Probably wouldn't buy random ones that would then be isolated, that would just create a pocket of space. So you kind of got to think about it as playing Monopoly. Could you get all three of these and have a vast sweep of land on this area? Or could you get one on the edge? So if you get one of these, it does give you the ability to, even if you just put like a non-customer facing building out here, it would give you room to just bring that 3.3 million square footage up a bit. And, you know, we're not too far away from DCA if we get a couple of these to convert over to theme park land. All right, I'm now standing at the Dolphin Coves Resort with the Denny's over on the corner. And if you look off to the distance, you can see how all this cluster of commercial businesses, they kind of all nook into each other. So it's just one big corner of businesses that are sitting in on this block of land. You could get them all, it'd be great. Ones or twos would complicate things. But if we shoot down at the end of the Dolphin Cove, I believe that is the very first hotel that we see down there at the end, giving us an idea that this whole little corner, this postage stamp on the corner, is a lot of different commercial businesses that maybe some would want to cash out, maybe some would want to stay next to a Disney park. And as we're doing our little lap, I think it's important to point out that one of the things in Disneyland Forward, which I believe is a rouge, so Disney's claim is they're going to put restaurants in there, shopping, and hotels. Why would you put three things in an area that are surrounded by those same three things? There are hotels aplenty everywhere around this parcel of land. There are restaurants all around it, and there are shops all around it. I do believe that the Disneyland Forward concept art is just sort of we don't want to show our entire hand. And also when you look at Disneyland Forward more specifically, it's about zoning. So maybe this plot of land is a little bit smaller than DCA. Maybe the naysayers are right, and why are you still here? And they can't buy all the businesses on the corners. But with more diverse zoning laws, they could do a lot more going vertical and make this truly a third gate, and maybe also have a resort style hotel in there, but maybe be the first ever Disney resort hotel that exists above theme park attractions.
And this is this is interesting that he mentioned this, because I think it's an issue with the fans. I think quite a bit when it comes to Disneyland Forward. A lot of fans take the art, the concept art, like almost like
The Bible.
verbatim. Yes, it's like the gospel, and they get mentally like mentally married to the art. Like even with the Toy Story lot. Well, I've had so many arguments on Twitter about that art. It's like not even funny how nope, OG. They show on the art it's retail and shopping. It's not going to be a park. What Brickey says here, they're not showing their hand, you guys. And like he said, it's for zoning. So they're trying to sell zoning, and from what I understand, the Toy Story lot is already zoned for theme park. I believe that's already there. So it makes sense that the art would be trying to sell zoning for other stuff they don't have yet. That's why they did a dining and retail thing, so they can get the zoning for that as well.
Right.
But yeah, but fans need that.
Oh, sorry, go ahead.
Well, and this kind of plays into the, like what Brickey said with the well actually crowd. Some people have a really hard time sort of like going beyond just what they see, you know what I'm saying? And that's fine. I mean, everyone's different, but with this kind of stuff, we need to have a little bit of imagination, because this Disneyland Forward project, or whatever it is, whatever you want to, initiative, is it's a concept. It's a very vague concept right now, and you can't get too mentally attached to every little detail, because that's not what this is exactly. Go ahead, George.
Correct. And I'm sorry, Disney is not going to be pushing out all the stops, having these little pop-up park moments, and having meetings with the president of the Disneyland Resort and in the Grand Cali for zoning purposes for shopping and dining. I'm sorry, I just don't see it. They have something much bigger on the horizon that's eventually going to lead down the road to expanding DCA, having a third gate at Disneyland, even possibly expanding Disneyland Park in the future. But I think they're going to go through the expansion to DCA and the third park before even tackling that. But I love how Brickey had mentioned to the fact that why would Disney, they have all the shopping and dining and hotels around the Disneyland Resort. So why would they want to buy that up just to do it, their own interpretation of shopping and dining? They're going to want to do something more. Plus, the notion also is too, if you go on the Disneyland Forward website, it shows like Tron, Toy Story Land. It shows some of the other features that are part of the international parks. And again, people are looking at that saying, oh, we're going to get Tron, we're going to get Toy Story Land, we're going to get the Fantasy Springs. We're not getting, you may get something of that nature, but Disney is just showcasing the fact of what could potentially happen if they get that plot of land zoned differently for the theme parks.
Yeah. It's and people have a hard time wrapping their head around that for some reason. I don't understand that, but there's been so many arguments on Twitter over stuff like that. It's funny.
And when I gave you my numbers on if Disney were to buy all the businesses on the outside of this plot of land, how it could grow, I did not have any of the residential spaces on that list. Affordable housing is so hard to come by in California. I'm cool with hotels going away, but anywhere where people are living, I believe that is a no-fly zone. So when I gave you the optimal amount of growth, this plot of land was not in that math. Here at the end of the street, you can see where the Toy Story parking lot begins. And also way off into the distance, you see the JW Marriott, which is the back end of Garden Walk, which I do believe eventually Disney will overtake and make that the Disney Springs of the West, taking people from the new parking lot just north of that, giving them the ability to walk through shops, dining experiences as they get to the third gate, which will be right there. And so in my monkey math, all of this real estate where citizens of Anaheim live in, that's not a part of my conversion because I do believe that this affordable housing should stay here. But hotels, Denny's,
And he's right about that. And Disney's sort of on this new I don't want to say accountability push. That's not the right word, but I guess this new kind of relationship with the city of Anaheim now, where they want to be more collaborative. I think that's a better word for it. More collaborative. Yeah. And I think it's a bad look if Disney goes in there and is like, we're getting rid of affordable housing to build a Disney Springs. It's a shitty looking move optically. And I don't think Disney wants that. I think they're trying to work with the city more and the residents more, and bulldozing affordable housing for theme park stuff is not gonna fly well with the residents. And so Brickey's right. I think that stuff is safe,
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that's not a good image for them.
No, not at all.
Not so crucial.
Oh man. Oh no, we got ads. No, Universal, don't copyright me.
So where I'm standing right now, if you look over at my phone, I am 100% parallel to where this video started. So we are about halfway around the footprint, even though technically we started our journey right there in the center. So we've maybe done 25% of the outer perimeter, and it's a lot hotter than what they told me it was going to be today. So technically where I'm standing right now, if there weren't gates, you could take these alleys all the way down to the Toy Story parking lot. But to keep safety for all of the folks that live over here, there's a system of gates up. So we're going to have to do the big walk around over to Hastur Street. So this essentially, for a large portion of the parking lot, is the border, but way in to where we're at, kind of around where we first started our walk. All right, after walking on past a lot of places that look like somewhere where the Karate Kid would have moved in, we are almost through this strip of residential living. All right, we are over at Gene Autry Way. At the end of these garages, you can see the wall that is the edge of the Toy Story parking lot. We have definitely put in some steps. We have sweated a couple of pounds, but we are getting close to being back up to the edge of this piece of land. So essentially, I've walked up the street. I didn't film in the shade because I needed to kind of catch my breath. It is very hot out here to be doing all of this. But essentially, this cut out of the block, never part of my math because it should stay residential as we've talked about. But all of these butt up to the edge of that space. And so for the naysayers, why are you still here? But if you're worried about, well, Disney would never build something that close to homes, if you look at the new DVC tower and its relationship with Walnut behind it, it is very, very close. to residential homes. And if we are to believe,
also if they build on the, like, let's say they have a park butting up against these homes, right? If they build the perimeter indoor attractions, like you obviously couldn't build like something outdoor where people are screaming and bugging the residents. But if it's an indoor thing, like a Pirates of the Caribbean or a Flight of Passage, or it's just in a big building, I don't think that would be a problem with the city. What do you think, George?
I don't think so either. I think also too, depending on if you make the show building more lengthwise, like vertically, like if you were to go above and look down, and you were to make the building more vertically than horizontally on the pavement, then that way you would have all the outdoor queuing for them to go into the show building. And the show building would be kind of smacked up against to where the residential, so there'd be like very little to no interruption to the residential area.
Yeah, and I believe that was actually something they actually mentioned too in this Disneyland Forward, like those community like coffee pop-up things they were doing for a while. I think they're still doing them, but I think they did mention that where like the stuff that's like closer to residents would be indoors and things like that. So they're aware of that, and I think they'll work with the city. I think they'll get it done.
Yeah.
Some of Disneyland Forward's concept art, they're showing putting theme park expansion in those same areas. So I think in Anaheim, they're not too worried to go too close to where folks live. I think I am now steps away from the cross street. And let me tell you, it couldn't come a second too fast. Even doing this early in the morning, it's hot out here. And all of these hotels and apartments have swimming pools. And man, oh man, do they look so tempting. And here we go, right at the end of this wall, we see a Disney Parks parking sign, which we started this video right over there in the EV charging. And we're now over on the far end of that lot where you can see the different hotels that I pointed out at the beginning of this. So essentially, we have now walked around more than half of the outer perimeter. And starting in there, I've basically walked the distance of this. This is a very, very big footprint. I decided to take this jaunt to kind of show you what businesses are there that may need to be acquired for Disney to take over a lot of this. But even if it was just the way that it was with the flexible zoning that they're looking for, guys, it's big. It's a lot of steps, especially wearing all black in the heat. Woo. Look at this. We are instantly back to the Disney landscaping. It's like as soon as you put 1 foot on Disney soil, you see that money spigot just gets turned right on. And wait. Instantly.
Wait. Did he say money?
Everyone silent. Listen to my money talk.
I think he did.
Different.
He did.
Way different. Some of the housing on this block is moderate to nice. Some of it you can tell that it's, very much working and struggling folks. So really hope nothing interferes their experience with living over here. But here we are. We're at the end of this. We're at the Hampton Inn Suites. So we have the edge of this property here. We have a hotel owned by a national company here on the corner. So now we're going to start going back to the quest of looking at possible businesses that Disney might be able to cut out of their land. And really, if we think about it, over on the other end, we saw 3 hotels in a row, the Denny's, and then another resort on the backside. So maybe 5 businesses in that back corner that could be on the playing field. You know what I'm going to do? I'm going to measure that out in Google Maps and right here put the number of what that square footage would mean if they could get it all. Not a bad number. All right, now we are back over on Catella. We are back to, the big budget, the big money, and that's all because of the theme parks. All of these hotels, everything that you see around us exists because of Disneyland coming here. I'm sure was attractive to putting in the Anaheim Angels. We know that for a while, Disney was the owners of the Anaheim Ducks. Like Anaheim is an entertainment district because this is where Walt decided to put his little park. And I have a feeling that little park's going to grow. And there's going to be lots of decisions to make on who's with that growth and who's not. But I think for anybody to believe that they're going to build more hotels, more restaurants, and more shopping inside of this parcel of land. It just doesn't make sense.
No,
I can't add.
No, it doesn't. It doesn't make any sense. You're never going to find 75 acres all together like that in Anaheim ever. And you're going to blow that on a bunch of hotels and shopping. And like I said earlier in the video, it doesn't make any sense. And then there's other options. Like if you want the retail and dining, you snatch up Garden Walk, or you buy another hotel on Harbor or something, and you bulldoze it and you build shopping there. Do you need 75 acres for that? I mean, it just seems absurd. So he's absolutely correct on that. Absolutely.
Yeah. Add it up. I can't get it to work. But a theme park always makes sense. It checks the box every time I try to do a gut check on exactly what needs to go in this parcel of land. It's got to be a theme park. It can't be anything else. So here is that Hyatt that we just walked past. I'm going to put this, Hampton Inn and Suites. I'm going to put this bad boy on the large scale of properties. If they could take this out, I mean, this is an attraction's worth of space right through here. And then there we see the walls of the park next to this small car rental. I mean, come on. If there's one that you could buy off, if there's one business you could pluck off, it's got to be this Avis budget micro car rental. This doesn't need to sit here if a theme park does. There's the JW Marriott, the Cheesecake Factory. Over there is Garden Walk, which make sure and go and watch the third video in this series where I break down if Disney were to buy Garden Walk, why it's the perfect location for a Disney Springs West, and why it would only make sense if that's a Disney Springs West, that over here is the third and final gate. By the way, through the tree line, you might be able to see that that's where they have all of the buses parked. Oh, it would be so easy to walk in here and catch a bus and not film this last corner. But friends, I am a psycho completionist. So come on, won't you please subscribe? It's embarrassing how this channel performs. I'm out here grinding. I'm out here making a fool of myself. Least you could do is watch me make a fool of myself. Subscribe, help me out. The numbers make no sense versus the quality of the content. So here we see a bus full of folks ready to cross the street when it's their turn to head along the back edge of Garden Walk, hook a left, hook a right, and make their way over to the Disneyland Resort. And another one. So here is the area that we just cruised our way alongside of. You can see they've got the buses over there, a couple of sheds, but here we have buses that are taking their voyage over to good times and making new memories. Magic is your final destination.
There we go. Okay. So I think we'll stop there. Go ahead and stop sharing. Okay. So fascinating video by Brickey. And like I said, I'm going to be linking his video down below. Check out his content. He does amazing work. He's in the same wheelhouse when it comes to stuff like this. He's in the same wheelhouse as us here at OG55. We love to geek out and really kind of explore the possibilities. Brickey's into that as well. So interesting stuff, you guys. I think that I'm pretty much on the same page as Brickey in terms of like what I think will eventually be there. George, I think you are too. I think it's going to be a third theme park, and it'll be very interesting to see how the chessboard changes with what Disney acquires. I'm still not sure though if they need to acquire those hotels that sit on a Toy Story lot. They might already own that land that it sits on. They might already own it. I don't know. I'm still iffy about that. I got to look into that.
Yeah, and if they're not, I wonder if they can't negotiate anything for the hotels to sell, could they still utilize that land for the third theme park, even if those hotels are kind of right there? I assume that they probably still could.
Right.
But
yeah, absolutely. Oh, go ahead.
No, so I was just going to say, as Brickey had mentioned multiple times in his video, this is the third and final park. This is Disney's last shot to really be able to grow Disneyland to its fullest at the moment without any really obstacle of purchasing more large parcels of land. This is land that they already own. So this is going to be something that Disney wants to invest in, because right now, even Iger had mentioned it in the quarterly earnings. Right now, Disneyland and the Disney Cruise Line is what's keeping the parks, resorts, and experiences afloat right now. Disney World's not doing so hot. I'm not saying it's really bad, but it's just not doing the numbers that it should be doing. Disneyland is pushing forward, no pun intended, with those numbers. So, and we've experienced through the last couple months, Disneyland attendance has been booming.
Right.
And that's just with 2 theme parks in downtown Disney. Imagine 3 theme parks, a DCA expansion, and downtown Disney.
Yeah, and there's more growth potential at Disneyland Resort than Walt Disney World. And before people like, oh my God, OG, what are you talking about? I don't mean physical growth. I mean growth in terms of like adding hotel occupancy and what have you. I've been saying it for a long time. It's much easier to sell an extra day at Disneyland Resort with another park because it's not overwhelming for your average family. Like 3 theme parks, you can get that done in probably 3 or 4 days, right? That the average family, that's doable, very doable for a family with work and everything else, to get off of work and what have you. Disney World, though, it's really hard. People keep saying fifth park. It's really hard, though, at a certain point, there's only so much vacation time people can take, and how much time they can take off of work and what have you, how much money they can spend. So are they really going to be able to take off that much time to do 5 Disney parks and 3 Universal parks? It's a little saturated over there. The growth potential is not quite as high. There's a lot more growth at Disneyland. I think that they would be smart to move in Disneyland's direction. And I know people are going to accuse me, oh, well, OG, you're a Disneylander. Of course you're saying that. No, that's not why I'm saying that. I'm making that case to you. It's because it's less days involved and it's easier for your average family to do that. Disney World is already a week-long vacation. You add a 5th park to that equation, not even the Universal stuff. You're talking like a week and a half, 2 weeks to get this stuff done. A lot of people don't have the PTO for stuff like that.
And not to mention, I've been going to Walt Disney World for as long as I can remember. And before they even consider on a 5th gate there, they need to work on the theme parks that they already have, because they need a lot of work as far as expanding the parks out to make them a full-fledged day, such as Animal Kingdom. They need more in that park to get people in through those turnstiles to be able to have a full day. Same thing with Hollywood Studios, needs just a little bit more. Epcot still needs a lot of work done as far as with the future world side of the park. Possibly even adding a couple more countries to World Showcase. Magic Kingdom, they're talking about, what's beyond Big Thunder to add occupancy there to get more people in through the turnstile. So Walt Disney World, Disney needs to focus on just the 4 parks that they have right now. They do not have the mentality, I feel like, to add a 5th gate before working on these first 4.
Yeah, no, 100%. 100%. I'm on the same page with you, brother. So, George, I want to thank you so much for coming on again, talking shop with me. I also want to thank Hey Brickey for the amazing video. Subscribe to this man. Go subscribe to him. He does fantastic work. If you like the OG 55 content, you're going to love Hey Brickey. So in the description down below, check him out. Hey Brickey, subscribe to him. Hit that notification bell. George, if you can let everybody at home know where they can find your sexy Italiano ass, eh?
Absolutely. You can find me on X at Disney George. You can check out the podcast, A Walk with Walt. And of course, you'll find me here on my home base at Orange Grove 55 with Citrus Corner, with all that sweet, juicy, but sometimes sticky Disney news and info. And a big shout out to Hey Brickey from this Italiano as well, because I'm a huge fan, sir. Would love to have you on the channel. Talk some shop, we'll be psycho nerds together. And as I said, we love your content. We love what you bring to the to YouTube and the vlogging community, and we appreciate you.
100%. Well said, sir. Well said. Everybody at home, comment down below with all your thoughts about the third park, the space involved to do this, the chess game, what hotels will go, what retail and dining will go or stay. Very fascinating conversation. What are your thoughts on what the third park should be? Should it be a Westcott? Should it be a Disney Sea? Should it be more of a Disney Islands of Adventure kind of park with just a bunch of IP lands, which is probably the most likely? Comment down below. We would love to hear from you. And everyone here at OG55, thank you so much for all your support. Bye, everybody.
Orange Grove 55.
It's the revolution.